Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Today I was online and I came across quite a few articles about Colin Kaepernick. He's a quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. And yesterday he participated in a preseason game against the Green Bay Packers. And as is the custom, before the game they play the national anthem. And unlike the other players, Kaepernick did not stand during the playing of the national anthem. He refused to stand as a symbol of his protest against police brutality. So he had an interview shortly after this incident occurred with someone from NFL.com. And I'm going to read to you his quote, and then I'm going to read the NFL's response, and then I will provide my commentary on this issue. Well, here's what Kaepernick had to say. He said, "I'm not going to stand up to show pride in the flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football. It would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder." And then he went on to say, he said, "This is not something that I'm going to run by anyone. I'm not looking for approval. I have to stand up for people that are oppressed. If they take football away from me, my endorsements from me, I know that I stood up for what is right." And then in response to his protests, the NFL basically said this. They said, "The national anthem is and always will be a special part of the pre-game ceremony. It is an opportunity to honor our country and reflect on the great liberties we are afforded as its citizens. In respecting such American principles as freedom of religion and freedom of expression, we recognize the right of an individual to choose to participate or not in celebration of our national anthem." And then I read some other statement somewhere where they basically said that they encourage people to stand during the playing of the national anthem, but it's not required. So I want to talk about this briefly. How many of us really know what it's like to be free? I don't think many of us really have a sense of what it means to be free. Many of us are afraid of a free black man, of a free black woman. We are afraid of that. A free black person is not afraid of consequences. They speak freely, they act freely, without fear. They don't fear losing a job. They don't fear losing money. They don't fear losing mass appeal. They don't fear not being in the mainstream. They don't fear being attacked. They don't fear losing everything. They don't fear losing their freedom. They don't fear losing their life. They don't fear anything. That's what it means to be free. And this brother who had the courage to do a simple act, he manifested freedom by doing so. That's freedom. When you have all this stuff to lose, but you don't care. There are people that are attacking this brother for standing up. By sitting down, that brother literally stood up tall for an issue that's vitally important, and that's the issue of police brutality. He's a free man. Often you have these people who are of positions and status. They have wealth, they have fame, and they have the appearance of power, but they are not free. Even a black man like Barack Obama, who is president of the United States, he is not a free man. He never has been a free man. He can't say what's on his mind. He can't speak freely on race issues in his country, even as the president of the United States. He has to hold his tongue. He has to worry about appealing to this person and that person, this interest group and that interest group, this lobby interest and that lobby interest, this corporation and that corporation. For all intents and purposes, he is essentially a CEO of a corporation called America. And the people that really run this country, the people behind the scenes are the board of directors. So this brother, even as the president of the United States, is not free. You have wealthy black entertainers who can travel the world, who receive attention from the media, but yet they are not free to speak out. They are not free. Somebody like Michael Jordan, he spent his whole professional life being silent in the face of all this injustice that people have experienced. And it's only recently that he has mustered up the courage to utter any word. That's not freedom. Despite being a billionaire and owning interests in teams and all that kind of stuff, that brother was not free. That brother still isn't free. He still has to walk on eggshells and appeal to people and not worry about, have to worry about not offending the wrong people in power. Despite all the wealth that this brother had or has, despite all that wealth, all that influence, all that notoriety, all that accomplishment, he still has to be careful. I mean, even with his measured statement about police brutality, he had to play both sides of the coin, much like Obama, trying to play both sides of the issue, trying to appease everybody and appeasing actually nobody. Those men are not free. This brother, Kaepernick, is a free man because he's not afraid of the consequences. He said that he's not afraid of losing football, losing endorsements, and losing notoriety. He's going to stand for what he believes in. And as someone pointed out on Twitter, and I retweeted them on my Twitter page, and if you're not following me on Twitter, I encourage you to do so at New Pos Blog. But someone mentioned that you had all these people basically, all these people that love Muhammad Ali, all these people who profess to love Martin Luther King. All these people, they profess to love these courageous black men. They love them when they're dead. But they don't love living examples of a Muhammad Ali. They don't love living examples of a Martin Luther King. People who stood up and spoke out. So when a black man has the courage to speak up, to speak out, I got to commend that brother or that sister who has the courage to do so, because it is so easy to be silent. And as Dr. Martin Luther King said, there comes a point when silence is betrayal. Given what is happening in these times, to sit on the sidelines and be quiet is to betray the black community. Every other day we're hearing about another incident of police brutality, where these police officers kill black people with impunity. They get away with it. And not only that, they become heroes. They become celebrities. People ask for their autographs. People rally around those who kill black people. They rally around them. They set up GoFundMe pages and raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for people who have killed black people. The killers of black people often get paid vacations, essentially. And in the words of Tupac, when a cop or somebody kills a black person, they become a hero. That's what happens. So I'm glad that this brother had the audacity, the courage to stand up and say enough is enough. There's only so much that the people can take. Every other week there's a new video showing another black victim of police brutality. There's only so much we can endure psychologically. We are being terrorized with these images of police brutality. Today I watched a video, and I can't remember what city it was in, but I'll post a link in the description box. You had a young man who ran a stop sign, from what I understand. And this young man, after running the stop sign, I think the police pursued him to some degree, and then he went into his house. The police kicked down the door. They ran up in the house. They tased him. And then this man's, I think it was his grandmother who was in this house. Within 40 seconds of the police encountering this older woman, who I think she was in her 80s, within 40 seconds of encountering her, they spray mace in her face, in her own house. This woman wasn't attacking the police. She wasn't threatening the police. And they did that to her. This is the kind of country we live in. And you all remember the story, I think it's out of Miami, where the brother was helping out an autistic man. And the police came. They thought the autistic man had a gun, but he actually had a toy truck. And the black man who was with him, his counselor, told the police that this autistic person, he's autistic, he has a toy, it's not a gun. He tells the police officers this. And not only that, the black man, the counselor, lays all the way on the ground with his hands in the air. And that wasn't good enough for the police. They shot that brother, and he ended up having to go to the hospital. Fortunately, he didn't pass away. But after shooting his brother, who posed zero threat, who had his hands in the air, who was laying on the ground, no charges were filed against those police. They didn't see any need to file charges against that police officer. This is the kind of country that we live in. We got all these examples of Eric Garner, Freddie Gray, Michael Brown, and the list goes on and on, of police brutality victims, Rakia Boyd, and so many others. And enough is enough. And this brother stood up by sitting down during the playing of the national anthem. And I commend him for that because of his status as an entertainer, as an athlete on a professional football team, he is bringing attention to an important issue of the day. He is forcing this nation to have a conversation about police brutality. This is the moment of truth right now. Much like how Rosa Parks stood up by remaining seated in her chair or her seat on the bus, refusing to be subjected to dehumanization and humiliation. That sister stood strong like a soldier by sitting down. She said enough is enough. And that's what this brother is doing. So I commend him. I salute this brother. I respect this brother. And we need more entertainers like this. And we have to not just look to entertainers and athletes to take action. We need to take action where we are. Each and every one of us. We need to be a part of an organization that is fighting for the advancement and empowerment of our people. We need to be a part of organizations that are fighting against police brutality, fighting against racism and oppression. No matter what the name of the organization is, become a part of an organization like Kwame Ture instructed us. Because it's not enough to just talk about problems. We have to actually do something about it. We have to change policies in order to change the reality that we live under. And I just want to briefly talk about this national anthem issue. This whole thing about honoring the national anthem even goes beyond just this issue of police brutality. It reminds me of the brother Frederick Douglass when he talked about the 4th of July and what does it mean to a slave who's denied freedom. A slave who's denied freedom celebrating the 4th of July makes 0 sense. Just like a people who were brought to this country in chains, held in bondage for hundreds of years, subjected to Jim Crow for decades, and who have only attained some semblance of civil rights in the last 60 years. People who have suffered that kind of oppression, that history of exploitation, they have every reason and right not to be so gung-ho and so excited when they hear the national anthem playing. Because we have been the victims of this country. We haven't benefited from this democracy to the same degree as these other people. So those are my thoughts about this issue. I salute this brother. I commend this brother. I stand with this brother. And we should support him because he's going to be under fire. They're going to attack him online. People are burning his jersey and making all kinds of derogatory statements about this brother. We need to stand with him, support him, and defend him.